What if, out of nowhere, you discovered that your deceased wife has a long-lost twin sister and that she is right in front of you? On Christmas Eve, Lucas, a lonely millionaire, sees a woman who is the exact copy of his late wife. But she is not a ghost. She is Sophia, a stranger who, by a bizarre twist of fate, ends up entering your life in the most unlikely way possible. Your 3 daughters need a mother. And he makes her an absurd invitation, pretending to be his dead wife just for one night. But a secret buried for years will turn this lie into an even more shocking truth. What happens when a woman who never wanted to be a mother discovers she may have been stolen from her own family? Get ready for a story full of emotion, surprises, and a destiny that refuses to be ignored. Christmas lights reflected off the wet asphalt as Lucas drove his sports car down the main avenue. The radio was playing some Christmas music, but he wasn't paying attention. His mind was too occupied with the fact that his daughters were expecting a perfect night, and he had no idea how to provide that. That's when he saw her. A woman stands on the sidewalk, illuminated by the intermittent glow of streetlights decorated for the holiday. She was identical to Clara. Lucas braked sharply, his heart jumping in his chest. No, that's impossible. His wife had died years ago. Even so, his eyes couldn't move away from that silhouette. Without thinking, he approached the car and rolled down the window. "Hey!" he called, without knowing exactly what he intended. The woman turned her face toward him, arching an eyebrow. The impact was immediate. Her features, her eyes, the way she tilted her head, it was Clara. Or at least someone absurdly similar to her. "If it's a robbery, I'll warn you that I'm bad at aiming," she said, crossing her arms. Lucas blinked, surprised by the answer. "It's not a robbery. I need to talk to you." The woman snorted, adjusting the strap of her bag on her shoulder. "Excellent. Another stranger approaching me in the middle of the night. I'm going to start charging admission." Lucas ignored the irony. "How much do you want to spend the night with me?" The woman's eyes widened. "What? It's not what you think." Lucas hurried to correct. "I'm not trying to hire you to... She narrowed her eyes. "For what exactly?" "My daughters." She blinked. "Your children. Daughters. 3. The woman looked at the expensive car, at Lucas's well-tailored clothes, and then at him. "Okay, handsome. Your approach needs improvement. Do you want to pay me to spend the night with your daughters? This is getting worse." Lucas sighed, massaging his forehead. "I need you to pretend to be their mother for one night." The woman was silent for a moment. Then he laughed. "This is new. Usually guys just want me to pretend other things." Lucas frowned. "Does that mean you accept?" "That means you're crazy." Lucas rested an arm on the steering wheel. "I pay you 5 times what you normally earn." The woman tilted her head, assessing him. "Okay, first, what a lack of class. Second, I'm not what you think. Third, 5 times? Dude, what kind of weird thing do you want me to do?" Lucas took a deep breath. "I just want my daughters to have a normal Christmas Eve." The woman bit her lip, evaluating the proposal. "If a child bites me, I'll triple the price. If they spit in my face, I'll double down again. And if they call me auntie, I leave immediately." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Do you do this type of negotiation often?" She cracked a smile. "You would be surprised." Lucas looked at his watch. It was already late. He had to go home. "So, do we have a deal?" She took a deep breath and got into the car. "Okay. But if this is a kidnapping, I'll scream." Lucas started the engine and accelerated, feeling the weight of that decision. He had no idea what was about to happen, but something told him that this woman was going to change his life forever. The car glided through the streets decorated with Christmas lights as Sophia watched the man behind the wheel. This guy definitely looked like he could pay an army to solve his problems. "I need to know who I'm dealing with," she said, breaking the silence. "What's your name, boss?" Lucas kept his eyes on the road. Luke. Wow, what a strong name. Lucas, the mysterious millionaire. She shook her head. And here I thought my night was going to be just a bad movie on the couch. He cast a quick glance at her. Why did you accept? Sophia shrugged. Because life is full of bad decisions, and I like to keep a consistent track record. Lucas let out a low laugh. Well, I hope you don't regret it. I regret a haircut I got in 2017, a boyfriend I had in 2019, and a poorly done tattoo in 2020. This crazy Christmas with an unknown millionaire didn't make the list. Yet. Lucas rolled his eyes but couldn't help but half smile. The journey continued silently for a few minutes until the car stopped in front of a huge mansion. It was something from another world. Sophia's eyes widened. Okay, now it's explained. You don't need to rent a mother. You need to rent a map, because this house is the size of a shopping mall. Lucas huffed, getting out of the car. Let's go soon. Sophia looked at the gigantic entrance and sighed. This screams, beware the ghost of the ex-wife. Lucas stopped at the door, giving him a serious look. No jokes about my late wife. Sophia realized that she had touched a sensitive spot. All good. No jokes about your ex-wife. But if I find a portrait of her staring at me in the hallway, I'll run away. Lucas didn't respond. He just pushed the door and entered. As soon as they set foot in the lobby, 3 small voices echoed through the room. Mommy! Before Sophia had time to react, 3 little girls came running and grabbed her. Oh, right. That part I hadn't considered. Lucas watched the scene with his arms crossed. You'll have to be convincing. Sophia looked at the children with a nervous smile. Hey, darlings, I was in business and lost my way for 5 years. The girls blinked, confused. Lucas rolled his eyes. She's joking, girls. Your mother had to go away and is now back. One of the girls, Alice, narrowed her eyes at Sophia. Mom, why are you different? Sophia gave an uncomfortable smile. Did I diet? Alice frowned. I don't remember Mom talking so much. Sophia looked at Lucas in panic. They are very observant. It wasn't in the contract that I had to fool mini-detectives. Lucas massaged his temples. Just do your best. Sophia sighed, looking at the children. Okay, let's do it like this. If I'm a good mommy tonight, will I get a drawing from you? The girls looked at each other. With colored marker. With glitter. Smells like strawberries. Sophia laughed. Closed. Lucas observed the scene in silence. For the first time since Clara's death, the girls were actually smiling. Maybe all that madness hadn't been such a bad idea after all. Sophia struggled to look comfortable in the role of impromptu mother as the girls chattered around her, holding her hands as if she had never left the house. If they knew the truth, they would be running in the opposite direction. Lucas led the way to the dining room, and Sophia swallowed hard when she saw the table set. Candles, silver cutlery, crystal glasses, all screaming, "You don't belong here." Well, so this is how rich people dine? Sophia murmured, looking at Lucas. I was going to suggest a hot dog and a Coke, but I don't think it would go with the French china. Lucas ignored the comment and pulled out the chair for her to sit down. They are happy, just enjoy. Sophia sat down, and the girls began to excitedly tell her everything they had done in the last few years. It was impossible to ignore the longing in their eyes. Alice, the most observant, tilted her head and asked, Mom, aren't you going to eat your soup? You always liked it. Sophia looked at the deep plate in front of her. Oh, yes, of course, the soup. She picked up the spoon and gave it a tentative taste. As soon as the hot liquid touched his tongue, he struggled to keep his expression neutral. What a flavor. Interesting. Lucas arched his eyebrow. Interesting? Yes, it's, an explosion of flavor, like seaweed mixed with flu medicine. The girls laughed and Lucas sighed. Sophia, it's just chicken broth. Sophia coughed, clearing her throat. Oh, of course. Chicken. Delight. She forced herself to swallow another spoonful and smiled at the girls. It's delicious, right? Alice wrinkled her nose. I prefer macaroni and cheese. Sophia smiled. It's sore. This girl has good taste. Dinner continued with small conversations and some laughter, but Sophia couldn't ignore Lucas's curious looks. He was analyzing your every move. When they finished, the girls got up and ran to get a drawing to show Mommy. That's when the problem started. Alice stumbled slightly as she ran out and Lucas frowned. Alice, are you okay? She nodded, but Sophia noticed that her eyes were shining strangely. Hey, come here for a bit. Sophia called her, placing her hand on her forehead. As soon as he felt the abnormal heat, his eyes widened. Lucas. She's burning with fever. The other girl's smiles disappeared instantly. Lucas got to his feet immediately. I'll call the pediatrician. Sophia grabbed his wrist before he ran away. Calm down. I know how to deal with it. Lucas hesitated. He knows. Sophia shrugged. My grandmother took care of all the children in the neighborhood. I learned some things from her. Lucas watched her for a second and, to her surprise, nodded. Okay, what do you need? Sophia took a deep breath, pulling Alice onto her lap. First, a wet towel. Second, some tea. Third, patience, because this little one here is going to need a lot of affection tonight. Lucas left hurriedly to get his things. Meanwhile, Sophia stroked Alice's hair, who closed her eyes slowly, leaning against her chest. It's okay, darling. Mom is here. She felt her own heart sink as she said those words, because for the first time that night, she wasn't pretending. Lucas returned with the damp towel and a glass of hot tea, handing everything to Sophia without saying anything. There was something different about his expression, a mixture of suspicion and admiration. Sophia took the towel and gently placed it on Alice's forehead, who snuggled further into her lap. Do you see? You'll soon be jumping up and down and giving your sisters hell again. Alice smiled weakly. I wasn't even giving them hell. Just a little. Sophia laughed and looked at Lucas. Well, boss, here's the doctor's verdict. She just needs rest, plenty of fluids and lots of affection. Lucas crossed his arms, still watching her every move. You're good. I know. I've thought about opening a practice and charging a fortune to put cold towels on people's foreheads. Lucas let out a half smile, but soon his gaze hardened. Where did you learn that? Sophia looked away at Alice, who was beginning to doze off. My grandmother. She took care of children all the time. He said that fever can be overcome with patience and love. Lucas was silent for a moment. Clara used to say something similar. The name made Sophia shudder. As much as she knew she was in someone else's shoes, hearing that made everything more real. She didn't respond. He just continued holding Alice, who was already sleeping soundly. Lucas observed the scene for a few moments before muttering, I think it's best to take her to her room. Sophia nodded and carefully stood up with the girl in her arms. Lucas took his other two daughters by the hand, and the four of them went up the stairs together in comfortable silence. In the bedroom, Sophia placed Alice on the bed and pulled the covers. There you go, little one, now just rest. The other two girls approached slowly. Is she going to be okay? Asked one of them, worried. Sophia smiled and ruffled the girl's hair. Of course, and tomorrow you can make her hell again. They laughed softly and, to her surprise, hugged each other around her. Lucas watched everything without saying a word. When the girls finally walked away, Sophia turned to him. Well, mission accomplished. I think I can go now, right? Lucas didn't respond right away. There was something in his eyes, something indecipherable. Can we talk for a minute? Sophia raised an eyebrow. If it's not to resign from my role as acting mother, I think so. He guided her out of the room, closing the door behind him. Why did you accept that? Sophia crossed her arms. This again? I already said. Consistent history of bad decisions. Lucas let out a sigh. It's just, you make it seem so natural. Sophia blinked in surprise. Pretend to be your dead wife. Thanks, I guess. He rolled his eyes. No, I mean, deal with them. Alice fell asleep in your lap as if you were really her mother. Sophia hesitated but soon opened a smile. Children like affection, and I'm not exactly a monster. Lucas kept his gaze fixed on hers. Maybe not, but I still don't know who you really are. Sophia laughed. And where would the fun be if I revealed everything right away? Lucas didn't respond. He just watched her for a few more seconds before murmuring, You should rest. There's still a long night ahead. Sophia sighed and walked down the hall. What she didn't know was that that night was about to get a lot stranger. Sophia woke up to a shrill scream echoing through the house. She jumped out of bed in a fright, trying to understand where she was. Giant bed, Egyptian cotton sheets, lavender smell. Oh, right, the weird millionaire's house. Another scream came from the hallway. This time it was followed by childish laughter. She opened the door and found 3 girls running down the hallway, wearing nightgowns that looked like they came out of a magazine catalogue. Lucas stood behind them, with the expression of a man who hadn't slept well in years. Stop it! You'll wake up the whole house, he grumbled, massaging his temples. Alice, the patient from the previous night, stopped for a moment to look at Sophia and smiled. Mommy. The other 2 turned at the same time. Mom, we were waiting for you. Sophia froze. He still hadn't gotten used to that title. Hi. Alice ran up to her and grabbed her hand. We want to see the photos in our album. Sophia blinked. What album? Lucas sighed and pointed to the living room. They've been obsessed with this since they woke up. Go with them while I have a coffee. I need caffeine to process this mess. Sophia was dragged by the girls to a huge sofa. On the coffee table, a gold-covered photo album was open. Here, Mommy, look! Sophia sat down and the girls piled photos on her lap. Images of family, smiles, past Christmases. And at the center of them all, Clara. Sophia felt a lump in her throat. The resemblance was frightening. She picked up one of the photos and studied every detail. Clara smiled, surrounded by her daughters and Lucas, who at the time seemed like a lighter man, less weighed down by time. It was then that his eyes found a photo that was different from the others. It was an old image, in black and white. 2 young women, identical. Sophia felt her stomach sink. She knew that face. Where did you find this one? His voice was weak. Alice pointed to the bottom of the album. It was stored there, in the corner. Sophia turned the photo over and saw a note on the back. To my daughter, Clara. Love, Mommy. Sophia's world rocked. She knew that handwriting. It was your grandmother's. That doesn't make sense. Lucas returned to the living room with a cup of coffee in his hand. What doesn't make sense? Sophia stared at him, holding the photo as if it were a bomb about to explode. Lucas, who is this woman here? He looked at the photo, frowning. Clara's mother. Why? Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. If that woman was Clara's mother, then... She swallowed hard. Because she was also my mother. Lucas froze. What? Sophia took a deep breath, trying to organize the chaotic thoughts in her mind. This woman, she gave birth to me too, but I was raised by my grandmother. Lucas seemed unable to speak. If Clara and Sophia had the same mother, that only meant one thing. We were twins. The girls watched everything in silence, not understanding the tension in the air. So does that mean you're my aunt? Asked one of them. Sophia blinked. I think so. Alice shrugged and smiled. So you're Mom 2.0. Sophia let out a weak laugh. Lucas, on the other hand, looked lost. He stood up slowly and began to walk around the room. This can't be a coincidence. Sophia sighed and threw herself on the couch. Welcome to my world, boss. She looked at the photo again. The truth was as absurd as it seemed, but somehow she felt like it made sense. Lucas was still walking around the room, holding the cup of coffee, which by now was probably cold. Sophia, Clara's twin sister? It was absurd. But at the same time, it made sense. He slowly turned to her. Is this some kind of joke? Sophia raised her hands. Oh yes, Lucas. I planned all of this. I spent years wandering the streets hoping to find a widowed millionaire who needed to hire a temporary mother, only to then reveal that I'm his late wife's twin sister. Simply brilliant. Lucas closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Okay, but how are you sure? Sophia held up the photo. Because I know that handwriting. It was my grandmother who raised me, and she told me that my mother died during childbirth. But look at this note. Lucas took the photo from her hands and studied the message. He had seen those words before, but had never given it any importance. And why didn't your grandmother ever tell you that you had a sister? Sophia sighed. She said that my father was gone, that my mother died, and that I was the only thing left. But if Clara was raised by another family, that means someone separated us. Lucas looked at the photo of Clara next to the children. And you never knew? Sophia shrugged. I grew up thinking I was an only child. I've never seen anyone who looks like me, until last night, when I saw her portrait here. Silence took over the room. The girls were sitting on the couch, absorbing every word. Suddenly, Alice raised her hand, as if she were at school. If you were Mum's sister, does that mean you're part of our family? Sophia opened her mouth, but hesitated. Did she do it? Lucas watched her expression. He also wanted the answer. Sophia looked at the three girls, her eyes shining with expectation. What could she say? In the end, it was Alice who resolved the issue. She stood up, crossed her arms, and declared, Well, if you're family, then you have to stay. The other two nodded excitedly. Sophia laughed. Ah, so that's how it works. Just declare it and that's it? Alice placed her hands on her hips. Yes. Do you think we would let you leave after this discovery? Lucas opened his mouth to protest, but stopped. Actually, Alice had a point. He ran a hand through his hair and looked at Sophia. Well, and you? What do you want to do? Sophia looked at the girls, then at the photo on the table, and finally at Lucas. She smiled crookedly. Well, I think I'll need to renegotiate this contract. Lucas raised an eyebrow. And what would be your new requirement? Sophia crossed her arms. Less formality and more pizza for dinner. The girls screamed in celebration, jumping on the couch. Lucas, for the first time that night, let out a genuine laugh. Closed. He extended his hand to Sophia, who shook it firmly. Welcome to the mess. She smiled. Maybe, just maybe, that was the best bad decision I'd ever made. The house was silent for the first time that night. The girls had finally fallen asleep after lots of laughter, stories, and an impromptu dinner that involved more pizza than Lucas would like to admit. Now he and Sophia were in the living room, sitting across from each other. What had started as an absurd contract had become something completely different. Lucas sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. I still don't believe it all. Sophia, who was holding a pillow on her lap, raised an eyebrow. Do you mean the part where I'm your dead wife's long-lost twin sister, or the part where I was hired to pretend to be your daughter's mother, and now I'm sitting here drinking tea as if everything was normal? Lucas looked at her. Both. Definitely both. Sophia laughed, but soon became serious. And you? What does this mean to you? He was silent for a moment before responding. I don't know. Sophia waited, without pressuring him. Lucas took a deep breath. When Clara died, I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. Nothing could touch me the same way. But then you showed up. And, as absurd as it may seem, It's been different. Sophia watched his face, so used to hiding emotions. How different? He hesitated before finally admitting, as if something I didn't even know was missing had come back into place. Sophia was silent, because somehow she understood exactly what he meant. "Do you still think this was all just a coincidence?" she asked. Lucas let out a dry laugh. "Coincidence? No. If this were a movie script, I'd say the screenwriter overdid it." Sophia smiled. "Well, if it were a movie, now would be the time when the protagonist made an important decision." Lucas leaned forward, looking at her. "And what would that decision be?" Sophia held his gaze for a long moment before saying with a half smile, "You tell me." Lucas didn't respond right away. But in that moment he knew. I knew I didn't want her to leave. She knew that in some crazy, improbable way, she belonged there. And for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The fireplace crackled softly, casting golden shadows across the room's walls. The Christmas tree lit up the room with a warm glow, and the house, which hours ago had seemed strange to Sophia, now felt like home. Lucas took a deep breath, running his hands through his hair as he looked at Sophia. He knew what he needed to say. "Stay." Sophia blinked in surprise. "To stay? Like, indefinitely?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, not as a contract. Not like some crazy deal. Just stay." Sophia crossed her arms and tilted her head. "Are you asking me to be your housekeeper? Because if that's the case, I'll let you know right away that I'm terrible at cleaning." Lucas laughed and shook his head. "It's not that. I'm asking you to stay because you make sense here, with me, with the girls." Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated. Part of her knew she wanted to stay, but the fear was also there. "Lucas, I'm not your wife. I never will be." He held her gaze. "I know. But you are you, and somehow, that's all I need." She felt her chest tighten. Since when could a mysterious millionaire be so convincing? Sophia bit her lip. "What if I told you I was terrible at relationships?" Lucas smiled. "That is great, I am too. We can learn together." Sophia snorted but couldn't hide her smile. "You really don't know how to accept a no, do you? Not when what I want is right in front of me." Before she could respond, a yawn came from the hallway. Alice, still half asleep, appeared holding a teddy bear. "Mommy, you're not leaving, right?" Sophia felt her heart melt. She looked at Lucas. He didn't say anything, just waited. Sophia took a deep breath and smiled at Alice. "No, dear, Mum won't leave." The girl smiled and ran towards her, hugging her legs. Lucas observed the scene and approached quietly. "So does this mean we're now officially stuck with each other?" Sophia shrugged. "Yes, and that you owe me pizza for the rest of your life." He laughed. Closed. Snow began to fall outside, covering the city in a blanket of white. Christmas brought Lucas and his daughters something they never imagined getting back. A family. And Sophia, well, she finally found where she belonged.